So maybe you find yourself looking at your New Cards app and you see two different dates, the statement close date and the due date. And you think to yourself, what's the difference between the two? Well, I'll be going over everything you need to know to be confident about when to pay off your balance and why. If that sounds like a plan, sit back, grab a drink, and let's get started. Starting off with your due date. If you don't pay off your statement balance by the due date, you'll be charged interest. A statement balance is basically a snapshot of your balance taken on your statement close date. Don't get it confused with your current balance, which is your most up-to-date balance of all purchases made. The due date is set around 21 days after your statement close date, meaning that the statement close date activates the due date. Another thing to keep in mind is that when your due date appears, you'll see that you have a minimum balance. The minimum balance is the minimum amount that you can pay for the payment to count as an actual payment to the credit bureaus, versus your statement balance, which is all of your purchases up to your statement close date. You always want to pay your entire statement balance by the due date, not just the minimum balance, because this way you won't be charged any interest. If you get charged interest, then all the rewards you're making will be meaningless because you may earn 3% on dining, but you're getting charged 25% interest, and that math simply doesn't add up. So if you plan to use a credit card and only pay the minimum balance, I'd recommend just using a debit card, because this shows that you're not a responsible credit card user. And it's not worth piling up all that debt if you can't pay for it. So why is it important to keep both the due date and statement close date in mind? Well, let's talk about the statement close date for a greater understanding. The statement close date, in my opinion, is so much more important than the due date. This is the date that your statement balance is taken. It's also the date where the banks report your balance and all other information to the credit bureaus. This is very important because a big reason people decide to get credit cards is to build credit. So we want our credit scores to look the best they possibly can be. So when looking at the FICO credit score model, there's definitely some things we can optimize. Obviously, we want to pay on time and in full every single month, which satisfies the payment history category, which is worth 35% of your overall FICO score. The second biggest one is the one I'll be focusing on, which is the amount owed section, more commonly known as credit utilization, which is worth 30% of your FICO score. The name is pretty self-explanatory. It's the percentage of how much credit you're utilizing. The credit bureaus take credit utilization from both individual accounts and all of your accounts combined. So you want to make sure both numbers are good. The general recommendation is to keep it below 10%, though you won't get penalized much as long as it's under 30%, but the smaller the better. The quick equation to find your utilization is to divide your balance over your credit limit. For an easy example, let's say your balance is $100 and your credit limit is $1,000. You would divide 100 over 1,000, giving you 0.1 or 10% credit utilization, which is fairly good. Bringing this back to the statement close date, you want to keep all of this in mind if you have a smaller credit limit such as 1,000. This is because you'll probably get close to maxing it out every month. So the way to avoid getting penalized for having a small credit limit is to pay down your balance 2 to 3 days before the statement close date. This way, even if you spent $1,000, as long as you pay your balance down to, let's say, $10, all that will show to the credit bureaus is that $10, giving you a 1% credit utilization, which is really good. This will show you have very little amounts owed, which should help your credit score tremendously. It's worth noting that if you have higher credit limits, paying down your balance becomes less important. This is because you'll start to naturally spend under 10% of your credit limits because they're so high. Another thing to keep in mind is that credit utilization has no memory. So if you happen to forget to pay your balance down 1 month, your score will probably drop a couple points, but then if you pay it down the next month, it'll come right back up. So if you want to optimize your credit score, keeping both the statement close date and the due date in mind are crucial. So this was a shorter video, but I felt the information was very important because it took me a little while myself to really understand the difference between the statement close date and the due date. I hope you guys got some value from what I said in this video. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you enjoyed the video, because just like cashback, it's free. I wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all in the next one.